Uh, these this is kind of the start of I'm gonna be talking about writers and artists that got me into comics. Um, Particularly writers and artists I really kind of cling to and like. Now with I'm gonna start off with the obvious with me. Um, Everybody knows that I'm a big fan of Spawn. I like Spawn the character. Um, Basically, it's the first comic I ever read. Spawn issue number one, and ever since then I've been a big comic fan. Now I'm gonna talk about the creator, Todd Mcfarlane. Now Todd Mcfarlane, in high school, he always wanted to be famous. He always wanted to be famous in something. He wanted to be in baseball. I believe, he wanted to be either a batter or a pitcher. I think he wanted to be a pitcher, if I'm not mistaken. He wanted to be in baseball, so he tried out for different sports and things in his high school career, and he wanted to be in the big leagues, but they wouldn't accept him. So he also had another passion, which was comics. He liked comic books. He wanted to get into comics. He kept sending in things to Marvel or DC, and finally, I believe DC gave him a break, and he did a little run on Batman. And then he went over to Marvel. He did some stuff for Marvel. He did a run for Spider-Man, which is pretty much beloved by a lot of people. And in the late '90s, that became pretty popular. He had a certain style that wasn't really used a lot in Spider-Man. He kind of gave it a hip look to it and stuff like that. And then Mr. Todd McFarlane had a problem with Marvel. He had a problem with Marvel. They wouldn't let him kind of amp up the violence with Spider-Man. So McFarlane and a couple of other guys left Marvel to create their own company called Image Comics. And with Image Comics, he created the first milestone known as Spawn. Spawn was a very big success. Issue number one sold a lot of issues. It was very popular in the 90s. It had gotten so big, it got an animated series. It had a video game. Even had a live action movie, which was it was a popular movie at the time. It wasn't very good, in my opinion. It was rated PG-13 when it should have been rated R, and stuff like that. I also, I love the animated series though on HBO. It's, back then in the 90s, they weren't afraid to kind of branch out into new things and try new things with animation. And Mr. McFarlane took his cartoon to HBO, and it was very successful. Now, throughout his career, he wrote for Spawn, and he eventually left the book. Someone else took over the book. Greg Capullo and other different artists. And nowadays, Mr. McFarlane is very inactive. He's gone to court with. He's had problems with different writers like Peter David, Neil Gaiman. He's had different legal issues with people like that, and for the most part, he stayed away from comics for a long time. He didn't do anything in comics. He created his own toy business, known as McFarlane Toys, where he created toys for Spawn. He did stuff for Kiss. He's done stuff, action figures for Halo, and things like that. And Mr. Todd McFarlane, has just recently come back into comics. But the problem with that is nobody cares. He's not very liked among the comic book community, as far as I know. A lot of people don't give him any respect. They say he's just he was just a 90s guy, and nowadays he's pretty much worthless. He created a new series with the popular writer Robert Kirkman called Hunt, which I really like that. He does covers for that. He's gotten back into writing Spawn. He actually wrote Spawn in game. The book's been delayed, but he's writing for that and doing cover arts for that. But lately, my problem with Todd Mcfarlane has always been, he's always said that he hated corporate America. If you listen to his interviews and stuff like that, he's always says he hated corporate America. But in a way, he became kind of a businessman himself more than a creator. I never understood why he left his book. I loved his artwork. I thought it was some of the best stuff. But, him coming back into the game so late, no one really cares. He's not very liked among the community, like I said. And he's always said that he wanted Spawn to become a well-known character like Batman or Superman, but that's not going to happen because, I firmly believe if he had kept on the book, it would have at least been as popular as Hellboy or something like that. But now, Spawn is just looked at as the 90s crap, pretty much. And it's kind of sad because the guy has a lot of talent, especially in his artwork. He was very innovative, and his artwork was just very appealing to me. And, if it wasn't for this man, I probably wouldn't even be into comics, And Mr. Todd McFarlane has, for the most part, he's stuck to his business part of the deal. He's pretty much, he helps manage Image Comics. He's a big figure over there. Like I said, he has his toy company known as McFarlane Toys, and for the most part, he's been trying to get it. He's been saying he wants a new series for Spawn, new animated series. That didn't, we still haven't seen anything on that. He's wanted a new Spawn movie. Still nothing on that. He talked about recently doing a Sam and Twitch TV series. Nothing on that. He's talked about doing a Spawn video game. Nothing on that. The guy has just done really nothing recently. Nothing of worth anyway. He did a music video for Disturbed, which was pretty cool. He did the cover art for one of the Disturbed covers. For the artwork for that. He's been doing different directing in different mediums, but for comics, the guy has been pretty lackluster. He's come back here and there, and then he'll leave, and I have a problem with that. I just don't understand what he says he has a passion for comics, but it doesn't really show because every time he comes back, we don't see anything from the guy. But that's just my view on Todd McFarlane, a creator who pretty much got me into comics. Love this artwork, and I still do to this day, but I just wish he would come back to comics full time and do something new and, innovative. But he seems to be very into business, and he's, from what I hear, he's a good businessman. He's good with the toys. His action figures are pretty good. I have some of his figures. They're pretty well sculpted and whatnot. Especially when he gets to the bigger figures. He's very good with that in his company. But that's really all I have to say about Todd McFarlane. Pretty much a man who had his 15 seconds of fame and has really he hasn't done much. And hopefully he can do something new. And he says he wants to do a Spawn movie and all that stuff. Like I said, I would love to see that, and I hope he comes back with that. And that's my view on Todd McFarlane. And I will be doing more on these on writers and creators that kind of inspire me. And I am out. You all take it easy.